I'm here to tell y'all, man, Steve Sarkisian in Texas, it's never good to lose, good coaches from your staff, but I'm telling you, Texas is not going to miss a beat. We'll talk about why that's the case right now, but make sure you are subscribed if you're a college football sicko. If you love college football, you're a Texas fan, just make sure you're dialed in here, college football year-round. So we appreciate you being subscribed to be dialed in. This is the part of Steve Sarkisian's career now, with the success that they've had in Texas, where it's a problem when you lose coaches, but it's an earned problem. I was talking to Cato before the show. He made a great reference, and I want us to just kind of steal what he said and put it on the air. This is what I would call a Saban problem, what he called a Saban problem. How many times did we sit here and talk about Alabama after they won the national title, or they won the SEC, or they made a great run and were playing for a national title, whatever it was, and it's like, well, they got to replace the coordinators. Well, they got to replace this coach because they took X, Y, and Z job at the collegiate level to go be a head coach. And it's like, yeah, it's not ideal, but why were they able to have those conversations about having to replace their coordinators? Because those coordinators did a great job and they were able to win a lot of games and then go be poached by somebody else. Same deal at Texas right now, man. And the unique part about this discussion with Steve Sarkisian is I think about the coaching landscape in terms of tiers. Like, we have our top 10 coaches out there. Spoiler alert, I think Steve Sarkisian's a top 3 coach in the sport right now, neither here nor there. But there's a handful of coaches that are sort of in the Steve Sarkisian neighborhood of up and coming, haven't yet, won a national title or just won the first national title. Shout out Ryan Day. And they're all in this position where they're going to have to either start to adapt or they're learning to adapt right now. Like Ryan Day just replaced both his coordinators. Dan Lanning, I think it's a matter of time before he has to replace his OC. Marcus Freeman is no stranger to having to adapt, and that's only going to continue now as they have success in Notre Dame. So the point I'm trying to make here is this isn't something that's unique to Steve Sarkisian, but the reason why we haven't had this kind of discussion around Texas and Sark as much in recent history is because Steve Sarkisian has not had to replace his offensive coordinator. Why? Because he is his offensive coordinator. And so in some ways, that's sort of been a buffer for him having to make major adaptations on his staff and have to, try to plug some holes because just what I said, he is one of his own coaches on his staff, which has kind of helped things overall. However, I think that when you look to the future at Texas and when you look to the future of, Steve Sarkisian and his career, I think he's built for this. I really do. Now, having been on Saban's staff, you would have to imagine you learn a thing or two about retooling your staff and how to go about that. But the thing with Steve Sarkisian, I think he's a tremendous CEO, which is kind of an overplayed, label we put on coaches these days. But outside of just being a great CEO, I think he's a great future thinker and anticipator. Like, I think Steve Sarkisian had to have known at some point in time Tashard Choice was not going to be his running back coach. He wasn't going to stay there in Austin, Texas forever. Same deal with a Blake Gideon as a safeties coach. He knew at some point in time, I'm going to have to retool my staff because he's done that on his roster in a lot of ways. Like, the reason why I feel so confident in the future of how they're going to fill these holes at Texas is I have a lot of confidence in the way they've anticipated roster moves. Like, the quarterback room is a great example. You got Quinn Ewers, you go out and get an Arch Manning. You go out and get a Dia Bell. That pipeline is stocked. One, because there's a tremendous ability for Steve Sarkisian to be able to recruit the quarterback position. But the second part of that is Steve Sarkisian understands he has to have a quarterback to win at the highest level to achieve their expectations at Texas. Same deal in the line of scrimmage. I've said it many times, but you lost 2 All-American defensive tackles from a season ago. And what happens this year? Does Texas have a massive fall off the face of planet Earth defensively? No, they stay top 15 in America when it comes to yards per rush. He's seeing the bigger picture here, y'all. And that's what great college coaches do. That's what great CEOs do. And that's what Steve Sarkisian has done so far at Texas. It's the same thought I have around his staff. He's anticipating this, and I think Texas is going to be in good shape here moving forward. Now, I don't think it hurts that the Texas brand is in a very different spot than it was 5 years ago as well. And we've said this a few different times on this show just because I think it's noteworthy. Texas wasn't always this hot brand. In a lot of people's minds, Texas was this school that just sort of got thrown into the discussion preseason about how talented they were and what they could accomplish, but it was always based in this idea of what their logo was. And it was always this setup for great things and then massive underachieving. That's not Texas anymore. That brand, as iconic as it is, as talented as their rosters have been, they're built differently right now, and they've had a different level of success on the field. So while losing to Tashard Choice isn't ideal, the biggest loss I think you have in losing him as a running back coach is what he is as a recruiter. Like Texas just locked up the top class in America. Tashard Choice, half the leave, played a pretty massive role in putting that class together. But at the running back position, it's different than development at the quarterback position. My humble opinion is, as a running back, you sort of are what you are. Now, a coach can help you increase by a certain percentage, but you're not having a different career because of who your running back coach is, in my estimation. Different conversation with having a different career about the quarterback position. If I have a great quarterback coach, I have a great OC, that could change the entire outlook for what I am as a college prospect and as an NFL prospect. That's why we talk about development so much. But back to my point here, if it's about recruiting and losing a Tashard Choice, I think the brand, what we just said a second ago, is in a stable enough place to where as long as they keep winning games, I don't expect recruiting to take a massive downward spiral. Like Texas has made the college football playoff in the 4-team model and now in the 12-team model. I expect them to compete for a national title next season. Like Texas on the field is not going anywhere. You pair that with the brand, you pair that with what they are on the NIL front. Looks like they're writing a sizable amount of checks there, and more power to them. They're going to be in good shape when it comes to acquiring talent. So again, I'm not excusing losing a Tashard Choice, but I just want us to have this full circle discussion. If it's about Sark and replenishing his roster, replenishing his coaching staff, I trust his anticipation, and I trust Texas overall with how they're operating right now, how they're humming right now, to stay in good shape here going forward. So again, not great to lose good coaches, but Steve Sarkisian, with what we can tell about him and what we've seen from him as a head coach, he's going to be in good position to rebound and get Texas in a spot to where they're competing, how they expect to compete on the field, which is, of course, for national championships.